Welcome to Next GenerAItion Teaching, the CPD series that explores how to use AI as a genuine professional tool in your teaching practice without ever losing sight of the expertise and judgement that only you can bring. This is Series 2 about retrieval, Episode 13 in total, and today's topic is interleaving. It's one of the most robustly evidenced learning strategies we have, but it's also one of the most underused because, as we see, it works precisely because it feels uncomfortable. And we're going to look at exactly how AI can help you plan and resource it quickly and ethically. In this episode, you'll get the research base, a clear explanation of why it works, direct practical strategies for every subject, 6 ready-to-use AI prompts you can take away today, an ethical use framework, and a checklist to catch errors before they reach students. So what is interleaving? Well, interleaving is a learning strategy where different topics, skills or subjects are mixed together during practice rather than studied one block at a time. To understand why this matters, we need to contrast it with what most teachers do naturally and what most lesson planning tends to produce. On the left-hand side is blocked practice. Students complete all their fractions work, for example, in one lesson, all the equations in the next, all geometry after that. Topics sit in clean, separate blocks, and this feels sensible. Students tend to say they feel productive, work flows, and you feel like you've covered the content. The problem is that blocked practice creates an illusion of learning because students always know what type of question is coming next. They never have to do the hardest cognitive work, which is identifying which approach to use. And when that cognitive work is absent, the memory trace it would have built is also absent. Now, if you look to the right, this is interleaved practice. It's the same topics, the same number of questions, but now they're mixed. A fractions question, then an equations question, then geometry, then fractions again. Students cannot predict what is coming. They must identify the approach before they can apply it. That identification process is where deep, lasting learning happens. It feels harder. Students often say they dislike it initially, but the research, and we're about to look at it, is unambiguous. Before asking you to change your practice and to manage student discomfort along the way, it's only right that we are clear about why the evidence demands it. Rower and Taylor in 2007 said, interleaved practice produced more than 43% improvement in test scores compared to blocked practice. That's not a marginal difference, that's a substantial one. Cornell and Bjork in 2008 said, their interleave study produced over 60% better accuracy when classifying new examples into learned categories on delayed tests, demonstrating stronger inductive learning. Carpenter and colleagues said long-term retention was more than twice as strong with interleaving compared to massed practice. And the evidence spans primary, secondary, and university settings. This is not a niche laboratory finding. It's one of the most replicated results in educational psychology. The crucial insight, the difficulty that makes interleaving feel less productive in the short term, is precisely the mechanism that drives greater learning. Cognitive scientists call this a desirable difficulty. The struggle is not a side effect, it's the point. Knowing that it works is important. Understanding why it works helps you to explain it to students and to colleagues, and that explanation is crucial when you're asking people to persist through something that feels uncomfortable. So on the slide, I have 4 different mechanisms. Mechanism 1 is retrieval practice. Every time a topic reappears after a gap, the brain must work to retrieve it. That effortful retrieval, rather than simple repetition or rereading, builds and strengthens the memory trace. Each return visit is effectively a recall test. Mechanism 2 is discrimination learning. In a blocked lesson, the context tells students which strategy to use before they even read the question. In an interleave set, they must make that identification themselves. That act of identifying the correct approach before applying it is a transferable skill that mirrors both exam conditions and real-world problem solving. Mechanism 3 is desirable difficulties, a framework concept developed by Robert Bjork. Practice that feels harder in the moment produces a more durable learning over time. The discomfort students experience with interleaving is not a warning sign, it's the learning working. We need to help students and ourselves reframe that discomfort as productive. And mechanism 4 is the spacing effect amplified. Interleaving naturally distributes practice on each topic across time. You cannot cluster all of your fractions work in one block when it's being interleaved with equations. That automatic spacing compounds with the spacing effect, returning to material after a gap consistently boosts long-term retention. Before we look at the practical prompts and strategies, we need to establish the ethical foundation. Using AI in your professional practice is a decision with real consequences for your students, for your colleagues, and for you as the accountable professional. First is teacher accountability. Every resource you use with students has your name on it. AI output is a draft. It's not a finished product. It's not checked. It's not reviewed. That review is your professional responsibility and it cannot be delegated back to the tool that produced it. Second, always verify content. AI can generate text that sounds entirely plausible but contains factual errors, incorrect dates, wrong names, invented statistics, or misattributed quotes. In humanities, this can mean a student learns the wrong thing. In science, it can mean a question contains incorrect data or an answer which cannot be reached. Third, students come first. AI has no knowledge of your class. It does not know which students have gaps, which have missed content, which are working through significant barriers. Every AI generated sequence must be reviewed against what you know about the people in your room. Fourth, data privacy. Never enter student names, personal details, assessment outcomes, send information, or any identifiable data into a public AI tool. Anonymize all examples. Describe student errors in general terms only. Many schools have AI use policies. Check yours before using any tool professionally. Fifth is transparency. Be open with your colleagues, your head of department, and your leadership team when AI has assisted your planning. Transparency builds professional trust. Concealment can underline it. And sixth, your expertise leads. AI generates options, but you make the decisions. That distinction matters. The moment you stop scrutinizing AI output and begin accepting it without review, professional judgment has been abdicated. With that ethical foundation in place, let us look at the practical workflow. One of the real barriers to implementing interleaving is the planning time it requires. Designing a well-sequenced mix of topics across multiple weeks is genuinely labour-intensive. This is exactly where AI earns its place. So step one is map your topics. Before you open any AI tool, sit down and list every skill and piece of content you need students to practice over the next 4 to 6 weeks. There are no shortcuts for this step. AI cannot generate this list accurately for your context. It doesn't know your school-specific scheme of work, your students' current gaps, or what has already been taught. This is your professional knowledge. Step 2 is prompt the AI. Once you have your topic list, you give it to Claude or whichever AI tool you use, and you ask it to generate an interleave practice sequence. In a few moments, we'll look at the exact prompts that produce the best results. Step 3 is to check for errors. This is not optional. Before you do anything else with the AI's output, you check it. We have a full error detection checklist on slide 11. Factual accuracy, sequencing logic, appropriateness for your class, all of it needs your eyes on it. Step 4 is adapt with your professional judgment. Even when the AI output is factually accurate, it will not be perfectly calibrated for your class. Adjust the spacing, the difficulty, the combinations. Trust what you know about the people in your room over what an algorithm has suggested. And step 5 is reflect and refine. After you have used the sequence with students, use AI to help you analyse where errors clustered and how to adjust next week's sequence in response. This closes the planning loop and makes your interleaving genuinely responsive rather than mechanical. At every step, AI drafts and you decide. A question you often hear is, this works for maths, for example, but how does it translate to my subject? So I'm going to go through just a couple of curriculum subjects to show you how it might work for you. So in maths, you might ask AI to create a 10-question mixed starter covering algebra, ratio and geometry, specifying that no 2 questions of the same type should appear consecutively. The prompt can then specify the difficulty level and the year group, and AI can produce a ready-to-review set in under a minute. In English language and literature, you could ask AI to plan 3 lessons in which language, structure and form analysis alternate across different extract types, prose, poetry and non-fiction. The AI can draft a lesson sequence including which questions to ask at each stage. You check it for alignment with your specification. In science, after teaching cell biology, chemical reactions and forces as separate units, ask AI to design a 4-lesson retrieval sequence that revisits each topic at least twice, with increasing complexity from recall to application. You check the science is accurate. You adjust for what your class actually needs to practice. In history and humanities, you could ask AI to generate a question set that alternates between causation, consequence and significance type questions, drawing on events and evidence from different time periods. History is built on applying analytical frameworks. Interleaving is a natural fit, and AI can generate varied question sets immediately and quickly. In modern foreign languages, you could ask AI to produce a 20-question mixed tense practice sheet that integrates present, past and future tense, along with a translation and a short written response. Tense discrimination is exactly the kind of skill that benefits from interleaved rather than blocked practice. And for any subject, perhaps the most powerful application of all, use prompt 4, which we will see shortly, to identify where to weave prior topics into your current lessons as 5-minute retrieval starters. You're not rebuilding your scheme of work, you're simply enhancing it. And now for the prompts themselves. These are copy ready. The only thing you need to do is replace every piece of text in square brackets with your own context before sending. So prompt 1 is your starting point, generating a full interleave sequence. I teach, then you say your subject and your year group. Over the next however many weeks, I need students to practice, and that's where you list your topics. Create an interleaved practice schedule with however many sessions you need per week. Mix the topics strategically. For each week, explain why you have sequenced topics in that order. Notice 3 things about this prompt. First, we give AI the clear context, subject, year group and topic list. Secondly, we specify the structure, the number of weeks, the sessions per week. And third, critically, we ask for the rationale, not just a list, an explanation. That explanation is what you review with your professional knowledge. If the rationale does not make sense, the sequence probably doesn't either. Then you have prompt 2, which takes your approved sequence and generates the actual practice questions. Using this interleave sequence and then paste your approved sequence generates number of mixed practice questions for the number of minutes starter in a week. Include questions from at least, and that's when you choose how many different topics. Vary the difficulty from recall to application and format as a numbered list. You are feeding AI its own approved output as context. This keeps the resource coherent with the sequence, and before anything generated here reaches the student, you apply the error checking checklist from slide 11. Prompt 3 is for adaptation and differentiation, and I want to be specific about what this means in the context of interleaving. Prompt 3, adapt for differentiation. Take this interleave sequence and then again you paste the sequence. Suggest how to adapt question difficulty for A. Students working below expected progress, B. Students on track, and C. Students exceeding expectations. Keep the interleave structure intact for all groups. Do not simplify the topic mix, only adjust the cognitive demands. The final instruction is crucial. Do not simplify the topic mix, only adjust the cognitive demand. All students benefit from interleaving. Removing the interleave structure for lower attaining students would deprive them of the very mechanism that builds long-term retention. Differentiation adjusts the difficulty level of engagement with the structure and not the structure itself. The evidence consistently shows that all students benefit from interleaving, including lower attaining students, who are often the group most deprived of desirable difficulty by well-intentioned simplification. And prompt 4 is the one I would encourage you to try first because it requires the least additional work. So prompt 4 is map interleaving onto your existing scheme of work. So here's my scheme of work for the subjects and the year group this half term, and that's where you paste your scheme of work. Identify 5 to 7 specific opportunities to add interleave retrieval of prior learning into existing learning. For each, suggest which previous topic to revisit, where it fits in the lesson, and why that timing makes sense. You're not redesigning your scheme of work. You're not rebuilding your lessons. You're asking AI to find the gaps within your existing plan where prior topic retrieval would fit naturally. The structure of your planning remains unchanged. This is enhancement and not overhaul. For a busy teacher, that distinction matters enormously. Prompt 5 is about designing a retrieval quiz. So you could write, create a 5-question interleaved retrieval quiz for, and then you add your year group and you say what topics you want to cover. Questions 1 to 2 should be recall level. Question 3 should require application. Question 4 should be analytical or evaluative. And question 5 should be the higher order thinking question that you want them to look at. Format as a principal student-facing quiz, including a mark scheme. Note that we specify the cognitive level of each question. This prevents AI from generating a set that is entirely recall-based, which would defeat the purpose of the higher order thinking we want interleaving to develop. And we ask for a mark scheme. Check the mark scheme against your specification before using it. This is a non-negotiable. And then prompt 6, the one most teachers overlook, but which is arguably the most powerful. Prompt 6 is a just sequence based on student errors. Then you put your year group, completed an interleaved practice task. Their main errors were, and then you describe the errors, but make sure that you don't put any student names or any personal details. Based on this, which topics need more retrieval practice? How should I adjust next week's interleave sequence to address these gaps whilst maintaining the mixed structure? A quick privacy reminder. Describe errors in general terms only. For example, students confuse the method for, or a common mistake was. Please never include student names, sends, information, assessment grades, or any personal details or anything identifiable that could show who a student is. This applies to all AI interactions. And this prompt closes the loop. You're not following a pre-planned fixed sequence regardless of what happens in your classroom. You're using AI to help you respond to what your students actually did, building responsive, evidence-informed practice with AI handling the drafting work. Now, I say this in all of my videos, but I want to reiterate this, that AI can mistakes. Not rarely, but frequently enough that every output does require review. It generates plausible sounding content that can be factually incorrect, sequentially illogical, or contextually inappropriate, or in rare cases, genuinely harmful to the learning of students. Your professional review is not a courtesy, it's a professional and ethical obligation. So, factual accuracy. Please verify every date, name, statistic, and quote. Cross-reference claims against your scheme of work, your textbook, and your specification. In science and history especially, check that terminology matches exactly the language that your school needs. In maths, work through the questions yourself before setting it. AI can generate questions that are unsolvable or do have incorrect answers. The sequencing logic. Does the sequence build in complexity over time? Are topics spaced far enough apart between appearances? Is any single topic appearing too frequently or too rarely? And does the sequence actually match where your class is right now? Or is it hypothetically well designed but practically wrong for the room that you teach in? Red flags. Reject the output if AI has mixed in a topic your students have not yet been taught. Questions are all at the same difficulty level. Explanations use vocabulary your students do not yet have. Any questions could cause distress, confusion, or an unfair disadvantage to any student in your class. And before giving to students, read the full set aloud to yourself. Does it flow? Does it make sense? Would you be confident defending every question to a parent? If the difficulty is genuinely varied, have you checked the mark scheme against your specifications mark criteria and not just the answers themselves? Like I say, AI is mostly correct, but you do need to make sure that you do check it for those instances when it might get it wrong. So let's zoom out and think about where interleaving and AI assisted planning sits at each level of your professional practice. At long-term planning level, identify which topics link naturally across the year and build explicit return visit markers into your scheme of work. Use Prompt 4 to map AI suggested retrieval moments into your existing annual plan. As a practical starting point, aim for around 10% of lesson time dedicated to prior topic retrieval across the year. Small contributions that compound significantly over time. At medium-term planning level, use Prompt 1 to generate a draft interleave sequence for each half term. Review it against your class's actual progress data. Thread 3 to 4 prior topics as retrieval starters across the half term. Build in Prompt 6 reviews at the midpoint. Check what errors are emerging and adjust the second half of the sequence accordingly. And at lesson level, this is where interleaving is most immediately visible. Open with a 5-question interleaved retrieval starter. Use Prompt 5 to generate the initial set, then adapt it to your lesson context. Include one mixed task from a prior topic mid-lesson. Use an exit ticket with one question from today and one from a previous unit. And review the exit tickets before next lesson. Feed what you find into Prompt 6 to adjust the following week. At every level, the same principle applies. AI drafts, you decide, and you deliver, because you own the outcome. So here are some key takeaways from the video. 1. Interleaving is one of the most evidence-backed learning strategies available to us. The research is substantial, replicated, and directly applicable to classroom practice across every phase and every subject. 2. Ethical use of AI is non-negotiable. Verify everything, protect student data, be transparent with colleagues, and ensure your professional judgment leads every decision. 3. You now have 6 ready-to-use prompts. Use them to generate sequences, create mixed questions, build retrieval quizzes, differentiate, map out onto your scheme of work, and respond to student errors. All with AI doing the drafting work and your professional judgment determining what is used, what is adapted, and what is discarded. 4. Always check AI output before it reaches students. Use the error detection checklist on slide 11. It takes 5 minutes and it's always worth it. 5. Start small. One interleaved retrieval starter per week is a meaningful, manageable beginning. Build from there. You do not need to redesign everything at once, and you absolutely should not try to. So before you close this video, there are 3 challenges that I'm going to set, and you might choose to pick one or all 3 to try today. So challenge 1 is use prompt 1 today. Pick one upcoming unit. Give Claude, Copilot, ChatGPT or any other tool you might be using your topic list. Read what it produces, critique it, adjust it, reflect on what you changed and importantly, ask yourself why you changed it. That reflection is where your professional expertise is active. Challenge 2 is run one error check. Use prompt 5 to generate a retrieval quiz. Before using it, go through every item on the error detection checklist from slide 11. Count how many things you find that need changing. That number is your ongoing measure of how much professional review matters. And challenge 3 is share the research. Explain or talk about interleaving and the concept of desirable difficulty with one of your colleagues this week. You don't need to be the expert, you just need to start the conversation. Teaching or talking about something consolidates your own understanding, and you might set a colleague onto a practice changing path. So the mantra of this series is that AI drafts the sequence. Your professional judgment makes it work for your students. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, share this with a colleague who would benefit, and let me know in the comments section how you're implementing interleaving in your classroom. This has been Next GenerAItion Teaching Series 2, Episode 13. My next episode will be on retrieval for SEND and DAL learners.